अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। सर्वेभ्यो नमः, सर्वेषां कृते स्वागतम्. We are now in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, and in the last session we studied this shloka. I will just do a brief recap and then we will move forward. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritirjnanamapohanam cha vedaischa sarvair hameva vedyo vedanta krit vedaviteva chaham. Here Sri Bhagavan says that he is situated in the hearts of all the living beings. Sarvasya cha aham hridi sannivishtaha. And from him, mattaha, from me, he says, smritihi, that is memory, jnanam means knowledge, apohanam means the loss of both memory and knowledge, which is forgetfulness. So all these three things come from him who is situated inside us, inside our hearts. Then he says, Vedaischa sarvaihi, from all the Vedas, it is I who am to be known. That is the purpose of the Vedas. The purpose of the Vedas is not something else. The real purpose is this, to know me. Then he says, Vedanta Krita means the person who has actually compiled the Vedanta. Vedanta is a major philosophy in our Indian knowledge system, and it tells us what is the ultimate truth. The highest conclusion of the Vedas is Vedanta. So Vedanta Krit, I am the doer of the Vedanta. And he says, Vedavit, I am the knower of all the Veda. Okay, so he points out his role in the whole picture. After saying several other things in the 15th chapter, which pertains to the Jivatma, the material nature, Prakriti, and so on, now he is talking about himself. And then again, in the 16th shloka, he goes back to the Jivatmas. We will do that shloka now. Dva vimau purushau loke क्षरश्चाक्षर एव च द्वाविमौ पुरुषौ लोके क्षरश्चाक्षर एव च क्षरः सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थोऽक्षर युच्यते. So he says, Dvav imau purushau loke. There are two types of living beings in this material existence. Here the Purusha word refers to the Jivatma. In general, it refers to living beings, but here specifically in this shloka, he is referring to the general class of living beings called the Jivatmas. So there are two types of Jivatmas. Ksharascha aksharascha evacha. Sharaha means that ksharati. Sharati means that which falls, that which degrades, that which becomes, diminishes, right, which falls. So ksharaha, Sharaha here refers to the living beings who are under the influence of the three gunas of Prakriti and who have forgotten or who are not conscious of their original nature as the pure Jivatma. They are not conscious of their original nature of the pure Jivatma, and therefore they are Sharaha. They have been degraded by the gunas, by the three gunas. And the second class of living beings is the other Jivatmas who are actually Akshara. Akshara means that which has not fallen or which is now in a not fallen state, who are conscious of their actual nature, the Swarupa, who are conscious of their true nature. So he explains that in the second line. He says, Sharaha Sarvani Bhutani means in general, the mass of living beings, all living beings in general are Sharaha. But Kutastaha Akshara Uchyate. Kutastaha, the word Kutastha in Sanskrit refers to that which has an unchanging nature. that whose nature is unchanging, or that which doesn't experience a change of its nature. Okay, so now it's easy to understand. You can see that all of us typically we experience a changing nature. How? Because when we are born, we are a small baby. We experience our life as a baby, and then we experience our life as a small child, and then we experience our life as a youth, right? And then as a middle-aged person, and then an elderly person, and so on. So as our life evolves in a given lifetime, we experience a changing nature. And along with our body changing, our mind also changes. We are at one point of time very childish, we are immature, we have certain preferences, like preferences for toys or small kinds of games with other children. And then as we grow up, that nature goes away. We become interested in other kinds of things. We're attracted to other preferences. We like different kinds of movies. We like different kinds of friends, different kinds of mannerisms, talking. And this keeps changing. As we grow older, these things, each of these things changes. Our clothes, preference, everything changes. Our nature is changing, right? So you can see that majority of us, we have a changing nature. Our nature is changing, and we experience this change all the time. In fact, we actually look forward to the change, because not changing seems to be boring, right? So we think that change is required to keep life happy, to be happy in life. Change is required. Okay, so change is the source of happiness. That's what we experience, and that's what we think, right? But here, kutastaha, unchanging nature. Okay, so what does it mean? How can that be interesting? Okay, that is what the Gita is pointing out, that actually in our swarupa, our real nature, our true fundamental nature is actually an unchanging nature. That is what we are, the Jivatma. What is changing is the covering that we are now under, the covering that we have become attached to, this body, the mind, the senses. They are the ones who are experiencing this change. It's not we. But because we are attached to them and we see everything through them, we think that we are changing, and we experience that change. So actually, when we realize our true self, when we realize that we are that pure, unchanging Jivatma, which is free from all these material, uh, you know, afflictions, identities, and so on, then we experience our true unchanging nature. And that unchanging nature has natural happiness inside it. It does not require external change to become happy. You see, because happiness is intrinsic to it, it's an intrinsic property. Just like fire, you don't have to heat fire to make it hot. Fire, by its known nature, is hot. Similarly, sugar, you don't have to sweeten sugar to make it sweet. You have to sweeten other things with sugar to make them sweet. But sugar itself is sweet. You don't have to sweeten sugar by something external to it. Similarly, the Jivatma, you don't have to make the Jivatma happy by something external, because Jivatma by itself is happy. Each one of us internally have that happiness. It's only left to us now to discover that happiness. Therefore, without any change, we can experience happiness. Happiness does not require external change like we now think it is. It does. Right? That is the meaning of kutastha. Kutastha means one who experiences, the person who experiences an unchanging nature, his own unchanging nature is called a kutastha. So kutastha aksharaha iti uchyate, because such a person is aksharaha. Aksharaha means that person doesn't fall down. That person doesn't come under the influence of the material energy. That person has gone beyond the material energy. Like Shri Bhagavan has said earlier, Yat gatvana nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. Once one acquires that nature, or once one acquires that realization, that consciousness, then one does not come back, or one does not go back to that material consciousness. So that is the meaning of saying kutastaha akshara uchyate. And so the goal that is given to us, the aim that we should have, and that which should excite us, that should be exciting to us, that's something to pursue, right? Is this goal. This goal that we should discover that original nature, that true nature of our own self. Okay, that is the goal of life. Of course, the higher goal, even higher goal than that, is to realize Bhagavan, to realize the person to whom we belong, of whom we are a part, and to discover that pure loving relationship, to establish or acquire that pure loving relationship with that person. So the first fundamental goal is to realize our own pure self as Kutastaha, and then to realize that prema, that love, that loving nature with Bhagavan. There are two types of living beings in this material world or in the Veda. You see, one of the meanings of this word loke, Sri Baladev Vidyabhushana points out in his Vyakhya that lokyate anena iti lokaha means Veda, that which uh, makes everything else visible, that which illuminates everything. Lokyate anena, that by which other things are illuminated, the Veda. So the word loka also means the Veda. So dvav imau purusha loke means there are two types of beings described in the Veda known as Shara and Akshara. All living beings in general are said to be Kshara, that is fallen from original nature, while those liberated beings that experience an unchanging nature over time are said to be Akshara, situated in their original nature or have realized their original nature. The 17th shloka. Uttamah purushastvanyah paramatmetyudahritah yo lokatrayamavishya bhibartyavyaya ishvaraha. Uttamah purushastvanyah paramatmeti udahritah. So Uttamaha Purushaha, the supreme person, tu, on the other hand, tu means on the other hand, Anyaha is a different entity. Okay, now two types of Jivatmas were described in the previous shloka. So then he is saying in contrast to them, or however, there is another entity called Uttama Purushaha, Anyaha. Paramatma iti udahritaha. That person is known as Paramatma. So Jivatma, Paramatma. Okay, so now in the 15th chapter, it's very clear that the Jivatma is distinct from the Paramatma. The Jivatma is not the Paramatma. Okay, so Jivatma and Paramatma. Uttamaha Purushaha tu Anyaha. Paramatma iti udahritaha. Yo lokatrayamavishya bibharti avyayaha ishvaraha. So that Paramatma is avyayaha, means that Paramatma never degrades. Paramatma unka vyaya nahi hota hai. That Paramatma never gets diminished, depressed, or comes under the influence of material energy. Okay, so that Paramatma remains the Paramatma always, and he is the Ishvara, he is the real Ishvara. So Bibharti means sustains. What does it sustain? Lokatrayam avishya Bibharti. The Lokatrayam refers to the three lokas. So this phrase Lokatrayam appears numerous times in the Bhagavad-Gita, in the Puranas, in the Veda, etc. It refers to the classification of the different loka in the universe. Loka means a plane of existence. Like now we are in Bhuloka. We experience the reality in a particular manner, right? So this is called Bhuloka. Similarly, a better, higher level of consciousness than Bhuloka is called the Bhuvar Loka. And the living beings who experience that are in Bhuvar Loka. Similarly, even higher than Bhuvar Loka is Swarga Loka. And then like that we have Mahar Loka, then Jana Loka, Tapo Loka, Satya Loka, even higher levels of consciousness or lokas. Okay, these are not necessarily physical places. These are not physical planes, like Bhuloka, we sometimes translate Bhuloka as this earth, Bhumi, the physical Bhumi. Well, yes, on this Bhumi, on this physical earth, people are in Bhuloka. All the living beings are typically in Bhuloka. But the actual meaning of Loka is not just a physical world, but a plane of existence, a plane of consciousness. Similarly, we say that lower levels of consciousness, where there is more tamas and craving for enjoyment, are the adholokas, the lower lokas, like Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Patala, Rasatala, Talatala, and Mahatala. These are all lower lokas. And there also living beings live, and they are called Bilaswargas because they have very intense material enjoyment, which you don't find on this earth. So here Lokatraya can refer to the two ways of understanding this word Lokatraya. One is just the three lokas in between these 14, which are the Bhuloka, Bhurloka, Swargaloka. So we say Bhur Bhuva Swaha. Three lokas. That is one way of understanding Lokatrayam. That is how it's interpreted in some places. In some places, we divide the Lokatraya as the middle planetary systems, that is Bhu and Bhuvar Loka. Then the higher ones like Swargaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, Swargaloka. And then the lower seven, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, and so on. That is the lower seven. So these 14 are then classified into middle, higher, and lower. And that becomes Lokatrayam, the three categories of these lokas. So whatever it is, whichever way you understand, you can see that Paramatma, the Ishvara described here, he avishya means he enters or he pervades them. He is presence. He makes his presence available in all of them. And what does he do? He sustains them. That is how he plays a role in this material existence. He sustains them. He makes them exist. He makes them happen. He provides the energies for all the living beings, different kinds of activities that they do, the different engagements that they have. All that is sustained by the Paramatma. The Supreme Being, on the other hand, is different and is referred to as Paramatma. Imperishable and supreme, he enters the three lokas and sustains them. And then Sri Bhagavan goes forward in the 17th shloka of the 15th chapter. He says, Yasmat ksharam atitoham aksharaadapi chottamaha atosmi loke vedecha pratitaha purushottamaha. So he sums it up, what he said in the last two shlokas. He says, Yasmat, because Sharam atitoham, I am superior to the Shara, the living beings who are called Shara, the fallen living beings. I am superior to them. Aksharadapi cha uttamaha. I am not only superior to the Kshara living beings, but also to the Akshara living beings. Those who are Akshara, I am superior to them too. I am superior to both the Kshara and the Akshara. So, Yasmat Ksharam atitoham aksharadapi chottamaha ato asmi. Therefore, I am loke vedecha. I am known in this world and in the Veda, both in this material universe and in the Vedas, as Pratitaha, means famous as, or celebrated as, or popularly described as. What? Purushottamaha. I am known as Purushottama. So he is telling us that, like in the last shloka, he told us that he is known as Paramatma. There he used the third person. He described Paramatma as if it was somebody else. And now he is pointing that actually that refers to me only, that Paramatma or Purushottama. I am also called as Purushottama. Purushottama means the best among the living beings. The topmost among the living beings is Purushottama. So because I am superior to all the living beings, I am known as Purushottama, he says. Since I am superior to both Kshara and Akshara, I am the supreme. Hence, I am celebrated in the Veda as well as in the world as Purushottama, the supreme person. Okay, so this is the 18th shloka. I'm sorry, not the 17th, but the 18th shloka of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So in the three shlokas, essentially, he's pointed out the role that he plays in this material universe, which consists of different types of living beings, the Jivatmas. The Jivatmas engage in different types of activities. They they seek their happiness through material energy, and some of them have realized that they are not a part of this material energy, and they seek their happiness inside themselves. They have realized, and they are, properly situated. But he is separate from both of them. He is distinct from both of them. He is supreme, and he sustains them. That is the seva he does. Just because he is supreme, it doesn't mean he lords over them. Okay, we use the word Lord. The word Lord actually in English can mean somebody who is worshipable, somebody who is superior, supreme. But lording over means somebody who bosses over, or somebody who, tries to enjoy, and exploit. Okay, that is also a meaning in which the word lording over is used, and that's not the meaning which we should associate with the Bhagavan that we are describing here. Bhagavan is not a lord of that sense. Bhagavan instead is a person who thinks of himself as a servant, as somebody who thinks, what can I do to make or bring happiness to all living beings? Not what can I do to exploit them, not what can I do to increase my enjoyment at their expense. He doesn't think like that. He thinks, what can I do to make them happy? What can I do to please them? How can I give them happiness? This is how he thinks. What is it that will give them the best happiness, and what can I do to facilitate that? Okay, and that is the reason why he comes again and again. He advocates dharma and he gives the Bhagavad Gita. So here in these three shlokas, we see an aspect of that. He talks about his presence in this entire world, not to lord over the living beings, but to sustain the living beings, but to sustain this material universe. His objective is to sustain this universe so that the living beings can be happy and achieve what they want to achieve. Right? So that is what we see in these three shlokas. And we see an explication of this in the Bhagavad Katha that we have been hearing. Through the Bhagavad Katha, we directly connect with him. We know more about his activities. And again, we see that seva bhav, essentially the essence of Sri Bhagavan, the most distinguishing property in him is that prema, that seva bhav in intense, you can say intense measure that exists in him. So now we've been listening to the Bhagavatam every week, and we have listened to the first 18 chapters. In the 19th chapter, Sri Bhagavan again rescues his companions from a big forest fire. And in the 20th chapter, which we are going to listen to today, the 20th chapter of the Dashama skandha of Bhagavatam, here Sri Vyasadeva-ji describes the rainy season of Vrindavan and subsequently the Sharad Ritu. Okay, the word rainy season is an English phrase. In Sanskrit, we say Varsha Ritu and then the Sharad Ritu. So, what are the seasons in our Indian knowledge system? How are the seasons and the months classified? I've given you just for your information. This is how it is done. You can see this table. You can see here I've made different columns. There are 6 ritus. The rough translation is seasons. But season actually is not accurate because in the English, in the Western system, there are only 4 seasons, right? We have winter, then we have spring, then we have summer, and we have autumn. But here there are 6. So we need to distinguish between the Indian way of classifying and the Western way of classifying. And of course, there are 12 months, but the way these 12 months are delineated, that's also different from the 12 months in the Western system. So how do these 12 months come about in the Indian system? We have, actually, these are the names of the 12 months according to the most dominant system that we follow, the Vedic system. Chaitra, Vaishaka, Jyeshta, Ashada, Shravana, Bhadrapada, Ashvina, Kartika, Marga, Shirsha, then Pausha, Magha, and Phalguna. So right now we are going through the Pausha Masa. And how do these names come? These names actually come from the names of the nakshatras. For example, the nakshatra Chitra, there's a nakshatra called Chitra, and the Chitra nakshatra appears most often in the Purnima of this month. So this month is named after the Chitra nakshatra as Chaitra Masa. Chaitra Mas because the Chitra nakshatra appears on the Purnima of this month, either on the Purnima itself or one day before, or one day later, or maybe 2 days sometimes, but very close to the Purnima. Similarly, in all the other cases too, these respective nakshatras appear on the Purnima of that month or very close to the Purnima of that month. And that's how these months get their name, from those nakshatras. So Vishaka nakshatra gives the name Vaishaka Masa. Similarly, Jyeshtha nakshatra gives Jyeshta Masa. Then there is Ashada, Purvashada, Uttarashada. There are 2 nakshatras which come one after the other. They are next to each other. And so one of them typically falls on the Purnima or just before or after. Similarly, Shravana nakshatra, Shravana Masa, Uttara Bhadra and Purva Bhadra, they contribute to the name Bhadrapada Masa, also called Praushtapada. Ashwini nakshatra becomes Ashwina Mas, Kritika nakshatra becomes Kartika Masa, Mrigashira becomes Marga Shirsha, Pushya nakshatra Pausha Masa, Magha nakshatra becomes Magha Mas, and Purva and Uttara Phalguni nakshatras become Phalguna Mas. So that's how these 12 Masa names are coming from the nakshatra names. So these nakshatras. So what does a nakshatra mean? Now the loose translation of nakshatra is, like in Hindi we say Tara. Tara means in Hindi the star that we see in the sky, right? English translation of star. But actually, the original meaning of nakshatra is not a single star. Nakshatra refers to a small space in the zodiac. You see, along the ecliptic is the path along which the earth goes around the sun. And if you project the ecliptic onto the the cosmos sphere where the stars are seen, you see that along that path there are small regions. The whole path is divided into 27 equally distant, or you can say radially equal, the angle, in terms of the angle. If you divide 360 degrees by 27 approximately, you will get so many degrees. And so those spaces, those small portions, each of them is called one nakshatra. So those, it's not referring to one particular star, but that particular space, which is at 360 degrees divided by 27, the 27 nakshatras and all. Okay, that is called a nakshatra. So in the Purnima of the month, the moon, is somewhere in that particular space. The moon is somewhere in that space. The full moon is somewhere in that space, and that is why it gets the name according to that nakshatra, where the moon is. The full moon, as we see the full moon, it is in that space which is called Chitra nakshatra, so that month becomes Chaitra Masa. Do you follow? Are you getting the logic? So there's a very logical structure to it. It's not some arbitrarily thought of names. So that is nakshatra and masa. And then these masas are mapped onto ritus or seasons. So we have 6 seasons. The Chaitra and Vaishaka map onto Vasanta. Then Jeshta Ashada become Grishma Ritu. Shravana and Bhadrapada map onto Varsha Ritu. Ashwin and Kartika Masas map onto Sharad Ritu. Marga Shirsha Pausha Hemanta Ritu. And Magha and Falguna Shishira Ritu. Now, how do these correspond to the English seasons and months that I have mapped here? And this you can see approximately, this is how it maps on. Vasanta Ritu is roughly what they call the spring. Grishma Ritu is roughly summer. And Varsha Ritu partly overlaps with summer and then the autumn. Sharad Ritu is mostly autumn. Hemanta Ritu partly autumn and partly winter. And Shishira Ritu is winter. This is the rough mapping between the ritus and the seasons. And then the corresponding months in which typically they change over. Vasanta Ritu spans March to May. Or you can say Chaitra Mas spans March to April, Vaishaka Mas April to May, and so on. Okay, so if you want to have a copy of this table for your reference, you can take a screenshot, or I can send it to you later also. So this is how the seasons are mapped on. And now in the 20th chapter of the Dashama Skandha, which is what we are interested in, Sri Vyasadevji describes the Varsha Ritu in Vrindavan. And towards the later part of the chapter, he also describes the Sharad Ritu. And it's very beautiful the way he describes. If you read the original Sanskrit, he uses several analogies and metaphors. Now, it's very important to point out here that the Srimad Bhagavatam is not simply a book of poetry written for recreation. See, it's not just recreational poetry, but it's a very deep philosophical text. And it's a book of wisdom, intense wisdom, which is very much relevant to all of us. And Srimad Bhagavatam actually is a commentary on an earlier work by the same author, Vyasadevji. Vyasadevji wrote earlier to it a work known as the Vedanta Sutras or the Brahma Sutras. So the Brahma Sutras are essential message of the Upanishads. He condensed them into 555 very short aphorisms like Athato Brahma Jigyasa and so on. So he wrote several aphorisms, and these aphorisms are very difficult to understand by themselves. So then later on, at the prompt of his own guru, Sri Naradji, he wrote the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is the first Vyakhya, the first commentary on the Brahma Sutras, written by the same author. The same author who wrote the Vedanta Sutra, the Brahma Sutras, also wrote a Vyakhya, the commentary on them, called the Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam is an elaboration of what the Vedanta Sutra is trying to teach us. And through the poetry, in very beautiful poetry, it's written in a very poetic style. It reflects the poetic capability of Vyasadeva. It's said that among all the works that he wrote, the Bhagavatam is written in his maturity. That's probably the last thing that he wrote. And It reflects both philosophical depth and poetic skill, both in one personality, both coming together. Extremely beautiful poetry with very deep philosophy put together. And now in the 20th chapter, we get a small glimpse of that. He shows through description of the Varsha Ratu, he brings out small nuggets of wisdom, very beautiful wisdom, which he advocates to us. He says we should practice these principles which he is teaching here. Okay, so we will look at three shlokas there. So we'll first look at the background. What happens? The rainy season begins shortly after the killing of Pralambasura, and then after the killing of Pralambasura, there is again a forest fire. It's the Grishma Ritu before the Varsha Ritu. So Grishma Ritu is a very hot season, and forest fires happen. So this is the second time it happens in the Bhagavatam, in the Dashama Skandha. First time it happens is just after the Kaliya Mardana Leela. We heard about that in a previous class. And again, this happens after the killing of Pralambasura, and Sri Krishna does the same thing. He rescues all his friends, and they are again very grateful to him. And shortly after that, the Varsha Ritu begins in Vrindavan, and Sri Vasudevji describes how when the Varsha Ritu comes, all the living beings are nourished. Everybody is happy. Okay, we eagerly wait for the rain after the hot summer because everything is parched. So the farmers, the birds, the insects, everybody, the human beings also, people like us, we wait for the rain to come, and when it comes, there's so much happiness. So living beings are nourished, they multiply, they thrive, and the sky, the bright sky of the summer, the hot sky, is now agitated by moving winds. There are winds everywhere, there are swirling clouds, there are lightning streaks, and rumbling sounds and claps of thunder. Okay, all this is heard as the monsoon comes. So Shri Vasudevji makes very, very wise observations, wisdom-laden observations, using analogies and metaphors drawn from the Varsha Ritu and the Sharad Ritu. So we will have a look at three of them in this class. The first one is here. He says, Sandra Nilambudair Vyoma Savidyut Stanayit Nubihi Aspashta Jyotish Achannam Aspashta Jyotirachannam Brahmeva Sagunam Babhau. So this is the fourth shloka of the 20th chapter. Okay? Sandra Nilam Budaihi Vyoma. Vyoma means the sky. Sandra Nila means deep blue. Sandra means deep or intense. Nila means blue. Sandra Nila Ambudaha. Ambudam means the cloud, the rain cloud. Deep blue, dark blue rain clouds. The sky is covered by them. And these clouds are Savidyut Stanayit Nubihi, means they are accompanied or they are endowed. They are endowed with Vidyut, means lightning, and Stanayitnu. Stanayitnu means thunder. So thunder and lightning, thunder, and clouds all are together in the sky. And he says, Aspashta Jyotihi. This is an adjective of the sky. Aspashta Jyotihi means normally the sky is, very much endowed, or you can say it is adorned with the luminaries, the jyotis, the sky, the sun, the moon, and then the different planets, which we can see with our naked eye, like the Venus, Mars, etc. We can see them, and they're all shining and they're throwing light, right? The stars on a clear sky, you can see in the night, bright star. Starlight itself is good enough to illuminate. Even before the moon rises, the starlight can do quite a bit of illumination. The sky is actually illuminating normally. But now in the monsoon, aspashta jyotihi means all of these luminary bodies are covered by these dense, dark clouds. It's just like achannam brahmeva sagunam babhau. The sky is shining. Babhau means the sky shone in this diffused glow. It was giving a very diffused glow, and it was just like Brahma iva achannam sagunam. Sagunam Brahma iva achannam. Brahma, here the word Brahma refers to the Jivatma. The Jivatma in material existence is actually pure, but that pure Jivatma in material existence is Sagunam, means it is covered by the three gunas. The three gunas are covering that Jivatma and Achannam. Achannam means covered. Sagunam Achannam Brahma Iva. So the Jivatma in that condition he is now having an appearance. He is having a particular kind of glow. You can see that Jivatmas do different things, right? Even though they are covered by the three gunas enable them, or even through the three gunas, the Jivatma does all kinds of activities and comes out with its own performances. So just like the Jivatma shines in this material existence, the sky is shining in a with a diffused glow under the influence of the various clouds. So the sky with its dense dark blue clouds furnished with thunder and lightning glowed with the diffused light of the covered luminaries. It was similar to how the pure Brahman, the Jivatma, appears when covered by the three gunas. So he's introducing his set of metaphors with the most basic understanding in Vedanta philosophy of the Jivatma being in material existence. The Jivatma by itself is very pure, but it becomes covered by the three gunas and comes to an unnatural state. Its Swarupa turns into a Swabhav which is not its Swarupa. Okay, in the next shloka he says, Ashtau masan nipitam yat bhumyaschaudamayam vasu स्वगोभिर्मुक्तुमारेभे पर्जन्यकाल आगते अष्टौ मासान् निपीतं यत् भूम्याश्चोदमयं वसु स्वगोभिर्मुक्तुमारेभे पर्जन्यकाल आगते. So here he describes how the sun, Ashtau masan, means 8 months. Ashtau masat nipitam means over 8 months. The sun, Parjanya, the word Parjanya here, it can mean different things. It can mean the rain, it can mean the clouds, it can also mean the sun. So here in the shloka, it refers to the sun, the bright sun. So over 8 months, the sun, what does it do? It drinks, Nipitam. What does it drink? It drinks the water that's present all over this earth. With the help of its heat, with its hot heat, swa gobihi. Gobihi refers to the Rashmi, the rays of the sun. So using the hot rays of the sun, it evaporates the water on the earth in different places, in the lakes, in the sea, in the rivers, in the land. Wherever there is water, it evaporates that water and it sucks the water and takes it somewhere, right? Okay. Bhumyaha means of this bhumi. Cha udamayam vasu. So now here a metaphor is used. Vasu means the tax. Vasu refers to the tax that Vasu also means wealth, money, etc. And specifically here it refers to the tax that kings collect from the citizens. Okay, so what do kings do? King collects taxes from his citizens, like the government. Now, today we don't have a king, one monarch, but we have a government, a democratic government. And the government collects taxes from all of us in different ways. It collects, income tax, different types of sales tax, direct sales tax, indirect tax, so many ways in which taxes are being collected. And what is the government supposed to do with that? What does a good king do? What is a good king supposed to do? After collecting all the taxes, the king is supposed to use those taxes for good things, right? So in the Indian system, in the Varnashrama system, the Kshatriyas, what do? They collect taxes from the citizens, especially the Vaishyas and the Shudras who are actually earning money. It collects taxes from them and uses those taxes, uses the money collected for the welfare of the citizens. It does things, the monarch does things to benefit the citizens of the country, of their kingdom. Okay, and also the king gives in charity to deserving people, the Brahmanas who don't earn income. Brahmanas are engaged in different types of seva. So the king gives in charity to those Brahmanas. When he sees that they are doing good work, he gives them dan. Okay, so through dan and through other kinds of welfare activities, the king spends the tax that he has collected back to the citizens, returns it back to the citizens. Similarly, the sun in the monsoon season, over 8 months, Ashtau Masat, over 8 months, the sun has drunk the water of this earth. But now in the monsoon and the Sharad Ritu, the monsoon and Sharad, is 4 months. What does it do? It returns. Moktu marebhe parjanya kala agate. when the appropriate time comes, which is the Varsha and the Sharad Ritu, the sun returns that water through the clouds. All that water is returned back to this earth in a manner that it's beneficial, right? So when the monsoon, when the Sharad and when the Varsha and Sharad Ritu come, all the water comes back, and all the living beings benefit from that water. The rivers get filled up, the lakes get filled up. The farms are all, farms have the water to cultivate rice and so many other grains. The plants, everything grows, everything becomes green and beautiful, right? So all that happens when the sun releases that water back to the earth. A king takes tax from the citizens and then at the appropriate time returns it to them in the form of charity and welfare. Similar to this, the sun, which using its rays had absorbed the water on the earth over 8 months, began to release it when the time came. Okay, here the analogy with the sun is being used, and the more general message is that all of us, not only the kings, but all of us, each one of us, when we live in society, when we make a life, we take from society. We are continuously taking from society. We take the help of others. When we are baby and child, our parents bring us up. They give us so many things, and we just take from them, right? And so when it comes to an appropriate time, we ought to return to this society. That's the message being given here, that we ought to return whatever we have taken in a manner that is beneficial to society, right? We should never think that what we are taking, it's not about maximizing. You see, that's the difference between the Western system and the Indian system. The Western system is about maximizing what one gets for oneself, maximization of rent maximization, profit maximization. That is the goal of life. But the Indian system is about returning, in fact, returning more than what you take. Okay, it's opposite of efficiency. It is inefficiency in their language. It's giving more than what you took from them and benefiting this world. That is success. Success is not maximizing what you get from this world, but success is in maximizing what you give to this world. And that is what this metaphor is trying to tell us. This analogy is trying to tell us. That the sun collects water from everywhere and gives it back during the monsoon time and benefits everybody. Now we'll do the third one. The third analogy or metaphor is like this. It says, Taditvanto mahamegaha chandashvasana vepitaha prinanam jivanam hyasya mumuchuhu karuna iva. Taditvanto mahamegash chandashvasana vepitaha prinanam jivanam hyasya mumuchuhu karuna iva. So this is the Jivatma's dharma. This is what it's meant to do. So here he is using the analogy of the clouds again. Taditvantaha mahamegaha. Tadit means lightning. Taditvantaha means those which have lightning in them. And obviously it refers to the rain clouds. You see, among all the clouds, there are so many different types of clouds we see throughout the year. But it is the rain clouds which have the lightning in them. So Taditvantaha refers to the lightning-filled rain clouds. The clouds which have lightning, which are about to pour rain. Mahamegaha, huge rain clouds. You see, in the monsoon time, the rain clouds are huge in size. They cover half the country is covered by one huge cloud. They're so big. Chanda Shvasana Vepitaha. Chanda means very aggressive, something that is very agitated, very aggressive. Shvasanam means the wind. So very strong winds. Okay, when the monsoon comes, very strong winds are present. They blow the clouds onto the land from the ocean. Okay, in India, for example, when the southwest monsoon comes, the strong winds from the ocean, they blow the clouds over the land. Right? We are eagerly waiting for that to happen. And we experience those winds. It makes the country very cool. It cools the temperature. So Chandashvasana Vepitaha. Vepitaha means disturbed or moved by the strong winds. So these huge rain clouds, which are struck by lightning, are moved by these aggressive winds, moved and agitated by these aggressive winds. What do they do in that condition? Prinanam jivanam hiyasya mumuchuhu karunaha iva. So these rain clouds, they discharge their own life. What is their own life? Their own life is the water that makes them up. You see, the rain cloud is essentially made up of the moisture or the water, right? And when the water falls from them, the rain cloud ceases to exist. The rain cloud becomes non existent, it dissipates. When the water from the rain cloud falls to the earth, the rain cloud no longer exists. It becomes non existent. It dissipates and becomes non existence. So, Prinanam Jivanam. Jivanam means life. In this context, the life of the cloud is the water, which is very dear to everyone. You see, everybody's life is very dear to them. Nobody wants to give up their own life, right? So, Prinanam Jivanam Hiyasya Mumuchuhu, they discharged. Mumuchuhu means they liberated or they discharged. So during the monsoon, the rain clouds came on top of Vrindavan and they discharged all the water on the land. So what is it compared to? This is just like Karunaha Iva, these last two words, Karunaha Iva, just like the kind people, the saintly people. The saintly people, what do? What is their nature? They are just like these clouds. What they do when they see that there is so much suffering in this world, there is so much misery, confusion, darkness, people don't know what they are doing. People commit sinful activities by which they are going to suffer even more in the future. So, when the kind people, the saintly people see this, what do? They dedicate their life, they give their life and work for the benefit of these people. They do things which will help these people to elevate themselves. They set up institutions, they teach them good things, or they work for their general happiness. Even for people who cannot understand what they are doing is wrong, these people try to help them to live a better life, to find a better life and find more purpose and meaning in life. Okay, Karunaha Iva, they are very kind. Okay, so kindness of a saintly person comes in so many different ways. It could be in terms of physical action, it could be in terms of advice, it could be in terms of sanctioning or permitting something, it could be in terms of giving something which that person doesn't have, etc. So kind, saintly people give things to others and make them happy. And they're willing to give their own life, they sacrifice their own life. Okay, we know the example of Dadichi Maharishi, who gave his own life when the Devas wanted to make a thunderbolt out of his bones to kill Vritrasura, right? To kill an Asura. So, like this, the saintly people are willing to give their life. Shaken by strong winds, the massive rain clouds in whom lightning appears, give up the water that is their own life for the benefit of living beings. Similarly, moved by deep compassion, the kind person give up their dear lives for the well-being and satisfaction of others. So this is the message of the Vedanta. And you can see how in today's class we did three analogies or metaphors. And I'll just summarize what we learned today. In the first shloka, the clear sky, the analogy with the clear sky was used to describe the nature of the pure Jivatma. In the second shloka, the fifth shloka of the 20th chapter, the analogy was done with the sun and to describe a good king or a good human being, a good person. And finally, in the third one, the sixth shloka, the analogy was done with the rain clouds to describe a kind, saintly person. So the rest of the 20th chapter, we will do in each subsequent class, we will do a few metaphors like this. Each of them is very illustrative of what the Shastra is trying to teach us and what Sri Vasudeva-ji actually wants to give us through the Bhagavatam. So Vrindavan is being described, the beauty of Vrindavan is being described, and each of these shlokas describes how beautiful Vrindavan became. As it goes forward, the beauty of the land increases more and more. As Varsha becomes Sharad, then the beauty changes in a different way. And as we go through that beauty, we should also learn these wise nuggets of wisdom. And that's the point that he's trying to make. Ultimately, the overall conclusion is that if we want to become happy, then we should learn to become dharmic. We should learn these principles of dharma, which is being taught through these kind of shlokas, and practice that dharma in our own life. The mentality should be not one of taking from this world, but if at all we take, then we take for the purpose of giving back to this world. And the better we are able to give, the more happy we will become. That is the message being communicated here. So with this, I will stop for today, and I will look forward to hearing your comments, questions, etc.
Pranam, sir.
Yeah, Pranam Sarthak.
Sir, I had a few questions, but those were not based on today's class.
Okay, okay, no problem.
Sir, in the previous classes, you have highlighted the importance of sadhana and
Hmm.
especially the practice of japa. Also, you have earlier also mentioned about namabhas. So, can you please repeat or elaborate more? So, in my superficial understanding, what I understand is that instead of random words, the name of Sri Bhagwan is always better. Now, when it is chanted with thoughtfulness, then its power even increases. When it is chanted in, say, Brahma Muhurt, then the effectiveness again increases. And
Yeah.
when it is chanted with full devotion, as in, then it tastes like nectar. So there are all these steps. Uh, but what is Namabhas and matlab, can you please elaborate more on this concept that you had earlier talked about?
The story of Ajamila, for example. So, for those who have not heard it before, I'll quickly narrate the story of Ajamila, thanks to your question. So, Ajamila is a Brahmana, and he is actually, in the beginning of the story, he is actually a very pure Brahmana who's very conscious of his duties and performs his duties very meticulously and does not violate anything. He's very dharmic. Unfortunately, once when he is passing through a forest, he sees a scene of a man, a low class man, enjoying with a prostitute. And when he sees that, his mind becomes disturbed. And subsequently, he cannot take his mind away from that prostitute. So he keeps thinking about her. And then it leads to him seeking out that prostitute and discarding his own pious family. He breaks relationships with his own parents, his wife, children, etc., and goes and lives with the prostitute and falls from his position as a Brahmana. And he stops doing Brahmin activities, starts doing sinful activities like cheating, gambling, uh, you know, uh, stealing from other people, killing people, etc., to be able to please the prostitute, and becomes very, very sinful, very, very, very papi, accumulates a lot of pap. Eventually, when he is very old, he happens to have a child. He has a child at a quite advanced age, and he happens to accidentally name that child as Narayana. And so at that age, he's no longer enjoying with his wife, his prostitute wife, but his only attachment is that son. He plays with that child. The child gives him a lot of pleasure. The child, being an innocent child, does not know all these things. It just plays like a child. And seeing the child's innocence and beauty, this elderly Ajamila, the sinful Ajamila, plays with it and becomes very attached to it. So at the point of death, death comes to him. And when death comes to him, because he has done so much pap, he naturally, the Yamadutas come. Yama sends his very cruel Yamadutas to come there and take him out, pull him to Naraka to punish him for his papa. So Yamadutas come as they're supposed to, and just as they are pulling him out of his body, he sees them and he doesn't know what to do. Out of desperation, he calls out for the only attachment that he has, that is his son Narayana. And so he calls out, Narayana, Narayana, come here, Narayana. He looks for his son Narayana. Now, because he's calling the name of Narayana, uh, immediately the messengers of Vishnu, Vishnu Dutas, who are servants of Vishnu, they come, Vishnu Dutas come whenever someone on their deathbed calls out the name of Narayana or Krishna. Okay, normally you would expect that somebody who has done the sadhana of bhakti all their life, and all the time they're thinking about Narayana, Krishna, Vishnu, Bhagavan, they would think of him at the time of death too. And therefore, Vishnu Dutas would come to them. But now, because he is calling out the name of Narayana, the Vishnu Dutas turn up there because they have the mandate as per the law, as per the law that they follow. If anybody calls the name of Narayana when they are dying, then they should go and bring him to Narayana. That is the law given to them. So they just follow that law. The Yamadutas are given the law that if somebody has committed pap all their life, they should go and bring them to their place. So both the conditions are satisfied now. He has committed pap all his life and he's also chanted the name of Narayana at the time of death. So both Yamadutas and Vishnudutas come and land up there. So then, because the Yamadutas come first and they are pulling Ajamila out, the Vishnudutas come there and they stop them. They said, stop. You don't have a right to take this guy. Then there is a debate between them. The Yamadutas explain to the Vishnudutas that, we are the ones who have the right, and Vishnudutas explain back saying, no, there's a debate. This debate is supposed to be the debate between two schools of thought, the Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa is the one that says you should live by dharma. It tells all the principles of dharma. And if you do pap, you will go to Naraka. Uttara Mimamsa is Vedanta. It talks about these things, about the power of the name. And here is a case of nama-bhas. Nama-bhas means when you did not intend, when you take the name of Vishnu, Krishna, in any form, without the intention of actually referring to him, but for some other reason you took that name, it is called namabhas. But the point to note here is that the namabhas is done without any offense, because he's calling out in desperation, very purely, with the intention of seeking refuge. He wants refuge, he wants help. It's somewhat similar to Draupadi calling out for Krishna, because there all other refuge has been discarded in her mind. Similarly, in Ajamila's mind, there is no other refuge other than Narayana, that person by name Narayana. So even though he's referring to his son, that name Narayana is a refuge, the instrument of refuge for him. He's taking the refuge through Narayana, through that word Narayana. And because he's doing that, he's calling out that Narayana without any aparat, without any contamination in it. Because it is free from aparat, that Nam acts immediately. The instant reaction of that Nam is there, and it manages to bring the Vishnudutas there. Normally, when we call out the name Krishna or Narayana, we are not free from aparat. There is in our subconscious mind, because of the anarthas we have, there is some aparad or the other which happens, our desires or something, and we don't chant that name with the kind of purity that is required to actually invoke Sri Bhagavan himself. And that is why, even though we are doing namabhas all the time, we don't get that same benefit. But namabhas, the nam is so powerful that even namabhas, like in the case of Ajamila, leads to the result which a person who chants without namabhas, who chants purely, also gets. The name is so powerful. So this is the meaning of namabhas. The simple meaning of namabhas is that you're calling out the name of Krishna without referring to him. That is called namabhas.
So if the name is chanted, say many a times there are kirtans going on at places.
Yeah.
So people might be chanting the name, but there might be some different thoughts going on in the mind. So would
Yes.
that also be namabhas, or is it something else?
That is not namabhas if they are referring to Krishna. When somebody sits in a kirtan, then their intention is to take the name of Krishna as Krishna only, not as somebody else.
But mind is somewhere else.
Mind is somewhere
That,
else.
oh, I have to go to market to buy groceries.
So it becomes aparat. So there is aparat when we chant. When we chant, we are not able to chant without. So Sanatan Goswami, in his list of aparats, he lists 10 aparats, and one of the 10 aparats is anavadhana. Anavadhana means without proper attention. We are thinking of something else. We are thinking of some, let's say, investment that we have made or some work that we need to do. Our mind goes here and there, right? Or some desires, especially when we focus on our personal desires, that I want to achieve this, I want to become that, I want to become this. During the chanting of the Nama. During the chanting of Nama, when we are focusing on our desires, right? Because it's a case of anavadhan. So that becomes an aparat. So it's not namabhas, but it is nama japa with aparat. And therefore also it does not immediately give us the best benefit. We don't experience prema. Otherwise, If we chant Shuddha Nam, that is without any aparat, then instantly the symptoms of prem appear in us. Our experience of that pure love becomes instant. Instantly we experience that pure prema because the Nam is like that.
So, sir, Naam Jap with Aparadh or Anavadhan is any day better than no Japa, wherein there is no Aparadha also, because there is no Japa.
Yeah, that is true. So Nama Japa, it is understood that because we are, in the initial stages, we are not really Shuddha. So we aspire. You see, what is required now is the aspiration to become free from aparat. With that aspiration and with the aspiration to develop the mentality of seva bhav. So with that aspiration, we do Nama Japa. As we do Japa, we pray for seva bhav and freedom from aparat. We begin by contemplating. A few days back in my GMP class, I told a story from the Mahabharata. And I mentioned about how, you see, we did because it was January 1st that day. I had a class on January 1st for the GMP students. So January 1st is a day on which we make New Year resolutions. And I thought, why not begin with a good shloka from our Shastra before I go to the subject. So I spent a few minutes discussing that shloka. And I began with the shloka, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. Okay, I made them all chant. I told all the GMP students to repeat after me. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. Sarve Santu Niramayaha. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. So they all chanted. They were all very happy. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And then, as we discussed this shloka, I also told the story of the Ghoshayatra, which is a long story. And then I said, ultimately, you see, in that story, Yudhishthira is wishing well for Duryodhana, even though Duryodhana actually has done so much harm to him. He rescues him, and then he wishes well for him. He never thinks ill of him. He never thinks I should kill Duryodhana, I should torture him, etc. Right? Although that would be natural for us. If somebody was insulted us, somebody was harmed us, somebody was cheated us, naturally we would think that we should, do something to them. We should harm them. We should punish them. They should get, they should be done something. Something should be done to them. That's natural thinking, right? We would wish ill for them. So the idea of thinking well for others, thinking for others' benefit, let the other person be happy, let so and so be happy. That thinking doesn't naturally come to us. Now, that is what we should pray for when we do japa. Japa should be done in the mentality of wishing well for other people, wishing well for those who have done harm to us to begin with. Other people includes all kinds of people. Those who have done harm to us, those who have done good to us, those who have done neither harm nor good to us. All kinds of people are there. But we begin by wishing well for those who have actually harmed us, those who have insulted us, those who have mistreated us, those who have cheated us. So wish well for them first in the mind and say, let them be happy. And if that thought is not coming, means it won't come. It's not so easy to generate even that thought. Then pray for that. Pray to Bhagavan that please give me that ability to wish well for those who have harmed me, like Yudhishthira. Like Yudhishthira is able to do it. Let me also be able to do that. Now, this wishing well, we discussed in the class, is not something we do externally. We don't go to that person and say, I wish well for you. You insulted me, but I wish well for you. Don't say it externally. If you say it externally, put it on your Facebook page or put it in a WhatsApp message, all the meaning is gone. Externally, meaningless. Internally, nobody should know. Even your own family members should not know that you're praying like this. Don't tell this to anyone that you are praying like this, but pray like this. This is what the Shastra is teaching us. Genuine wishing well. And this is the beginning of becoming free from aparadha. If we are able to wish well for those who insulted us, then we become free from aparadha. And then we start wishing well for anybody. And then aparadha will go away from us little by little, and the real name, the real taste of the name, the real sweetness of the name starts coming. So in the beginning, aparadha will happen, but we have to yearn to become free from it. Yatna karke karna hai. Yatna se hi
Yes, sir,
prapti.
that was a very detailed answer. Thank you, sir.
So I have
It,
poured out like a
it
monsoon cloud.
No, sir, but we all are happy. Like in the story you told that Vrindavan is all happy after that cloud pouring out. Sir, I had one more question. So while I understand that uh, we talk about our waking stage, our dreaming stage, and as well as the time when we are in deep sleep. So while we are in deep sleep, we move beyond our identity. We also move beyond time space. But although it might sound very similar to that Turiya Bhav, but it is actually quite opposite to it, diametrically opposite to it, because in Turiya Bhav, we are super conscious. मतलब
Yeah.
चैतन्य पूर्ण रूप से प्रकाशित है वहां पे. तो while I understand this, but how is that deep sleep state different from that state, as in when we refer to the existence of that of, say, plants or jada vastu, from that of a stone, where there is no consciousness? How does this differ, the deep sleep state?
In the deep sleep state, the consciousness is, I mean, the Jivatma remains the Jivatma. In the stone, there is no Jivatma. The stone is just Jadavastu. In the case of the plant is in some kind of a very deep state. It's like a deep sleep state, but not exactly deep sleep. The plant's Jagriti, the plant also probably has Jagriti, Swapna, Susupti. But the plant's Jagriti state also is a state of very high tamoguna, means it's very dull. Its consciousness is very, very dull. Its awareness, plants have awareness. There are so many scientific experiments also which describe how plants respond to music. Plants respond to different kinds of emotions, feelings. When there are a feeling of love, when the person who is taking care of the plant shows enormous amount of love to the plant, then the plant grows better. There are experiments and things like that which sort of indicate. And also in our Shastra too, we talk about how the moonlight nourishes the plants. So plants have awareness, they respond to the environment. But their Jagriti, their environment consciousness, is much different from that of a human being. A human being's consciousness is much more developed than that of plants and animals, much more developed. And among human beings, you will see again different levels. A person who is, let's say, doing spiritual sadhana, right? Who's living a disciplined life, free from any pap, free from indulging in various types of sensual pleasures and so on. Such a person's consciousness is at a much higher level. His awareness, his level of mental clarity, his level of mental peace, his level of mental sense of purpose and direction is much better than that of somebody who is completely, you know, drinking, smoking, gambling, enjoying with women, doing all kinds of nonsense. Naturally, the big difference between them. So that person's consciousness is more like that of animals, right? He faces so much struggle in life, confused, telling lies, cheating, always trying to fight fires, putting out fires. So you can see that, consciousness exists at different levels. And so in Turiya Bhav, the consciousness is in a perfectly pure state. Susupti is, or Sushupti is different from Jagriti. In Sushupti state, it's not just about dullness. It's a state of being disconnected from all our all our senses. Completely, the mind and senses are completely disconnected from the Jivatma. The Jivatma is not aware of any of them. In Swapna, his mind is active. He's conscious. So many active dreams. He sees dreams. He's active. But in Sushupti, all of them are shut off. It's like a complete power shutdown in the house. Everything becomes blank. But the house is still there. The house doesn't become non existent. Again, when you switch on the lights, the house becomes lit. Sushupti is a state of
Yeah.
complete power shutdown.
So, sir, from where my question emanates is similar to this only, because uh, we call the mind a karana or an instrument. So basically, the mind is an instrument for the consciousness to manifest. So we know that this universe is situated in Brahman itself. So there is nothing in this universe which is not Brahman. and Brahman itself is Chetana. तो जड़ और अजड़ वस्तु दोनों ही चैतन्य या ब्रह्मन में है. तो we as living beings, since we have mind, so mind allows that consciousness to manifest and express. But these stones or plastic bottle, or say okay, let's not consider plants, but say stones, so they do not have any mind. So लेकिन वो चेतना में है, क्योंकि ब्रह्मन में ही सब कुछ निष्ठ है. तो दो stones are also located or situated in Brahman itself. So since they do not have any mind, and as you said that in deep sleep state, our mind goes into shutdown mode. That on, matlab, there is no mind. So that is why I wanted to understand, is there a difference between our level of existence during deep sleep versus that of the existence of a stone or some other thing, basically?
Yeah. The stone is not Chetana Padartha at all. We are all Chetana Padartha. We are consciousness. Each one of us living beings is consciousness, whereas the stone is a different substance.
So, but that is only at the level of matter.
Yes.
Ultimately,
Yes. Matter,
it is also a manifestation of that very consciousness.
it is actually derived, means it's the Bahiranga Shakti which manifests as Prakriti. Prakriti is a creation of that. Prakriti is a creation of that it comes from Brahma. Prakriti comes from Brahma. Brahma is the source of that. But it is not Brahma. Means it is inside Brahma. Everything is Brahma, that is fine. But it
Yes,
doesn't
yes.
have Chetanatva. It is Jada. It is opposite of Chetana. It lacks Chetana completely. So it is never conscious. There is no living being present there.
And in our deep sleep, are we also that jada?
No, we don't become that. We don't become a stone. We don't become equivalent to a stone. It is just that we become shut off from everything through which we experience the consciousness. See, the reason why that we experience a stone-like state, although we don't become a stone, is because currently in our samsara, we experience our own consciousness through the Jadavastu, which is our mind and senses, and our Stula Sharira. Our Sukshma Sharira, which has the mind and the senses, and the Stula Sharira, which is the body, the Annamaya Sharira. It is through that lens of that, or through the medium of that, we experience our own consciousness. And therefore, when we are cut off from them, when we are cut off from that medium, we stop experiencing our own consciousness. Although our consciousness has not left us, our consciousness is a part of that, is a part of us, always a part of us. But we don't experience our own consciousness in that Shushupti stage because we are cut off from the medium through which we have been experiencing it. Now, in the Turiya state, Mukta state, when we are Mukta from samsara, then we no longer need to use the medium to experience our own consciousness. We have become free from the medium completely. So even if the medium is not there, we continue to experience our consciousness fully. In the Sushupti state, we are not free, we are not Mukta. We need that medium, but we are cut off from that medium. Do you follow?
Yes, sir. So basically, if there is an enlightened person who knows his nature of that to be of consciousness itself, that person is not this sthula sharira or sukshma sharira, but चेतना itself. Then
Realize
जब
it. Yes,
चेतना को
we have
स्वयं का
managed
आभास
to.
हो गया तो किसी और करण की आवश्यकता नहीं है.
Yes, exactly. वो उसका रियलाइजेशन है, उसमें वो ज्ञान का बोध हो गया, उद्बोध हो गया है. He has discovered that
Yes.
within himself, and he has now managed to give up the attachment that he is now having, that all of us have. We have attachment to our mind, our indriyas, our stula sharir, etc. But he has managed to give up that attachment, and he has turned himself completely inward. He has managed to give up all attachment to matter and turned himself completely inward, and therefore he experiences that turiya bhav. So for him, he does not need the medium of these things to experience his own consciousness. He's able to experience it all the time. So such a person, even in deep sleep, for that person, deep sleep may not be the deep sleep that we experience. Because it is some kind of yoga nidra where he goes into a trance, which
Correct.
is his consciousness all the time. Because
Yes.
there is complete cutoff from the medium through which he experiences it. You follow?
Yes, sir. Yeah. And sir, I think what you are talking about also refers to a Jivan Mukta.
Yes.
So,
Either
is
a
this what
Jivana
Shri
Mukta.
Krishna is also
So,
talking
so
about?
those who have the body, they are called Sthita Prajna or Samadhista or a Jivana Mukta, etc. The perfection of Sthita Prajnata is this, what I just described. But there could also be other beings whom we don't see. We see what we see, you and I see, are beings which have bodies like us, right?
Hmm.
Either in the human body, animal body, plant body. We see that because with our eyes, we can only grasp that. Our eyes cannot grasp something which doesn't have a body which is like this, correct? So if there is a living being with a different kind of body, which is not made of this matter that we are made of,
Hmm.
then we will not see it, but it's there. So it may not be having a jivan like us. It may not be a jivana mukta. It is a mukta. Maybe the word
Okay.
jivana mukta may not be needed for that such a living being.
Hmm.
Nitya mukta. That living being is a
So,
nitya
sir,
mukta, experiencing its reality in a completely different way.
yes. And are these category of people being referred to as Akshara in the shlokas that Shri
Yes,
Krishna
exactly.
narrated that we talked today?
Yes.
Okay.
Those
Okay.
which are kutastha. Kutastha means always experiencing an unchanging nature. There's this constant experience of beauty and happiness in them. That joy,
Hmm.
illumination. They're constantly illuminated. They remain illuminated all the time. They do not need to put on the light.
Great, sir.
And
And for
that
pray,
is the aspiration. That is the aspiration of life. That is the goal of life that the Gita is giving us. The Upanishad, the Gita is giving us that goal to achieve that state. And the love, that seva bhav. Follow?
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So we should go beyond what merely Advaita is teaching us. Advaita takes us to a certain point where it makes us aware of the pure nature of the Chetana, pure Chaitanya, and how essentially the Paramatma and Jivatma have similar properties. So there is oneness between the Jivatma and Paramatma. Go to the level of Prema. There is bhed between the Jivatma and Paramatma in so many ways. Like even in the 15th chapter, we saw that. The shloka number 17 and 18 that we studied today clearly point out the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma, right? So, in that level of difference, seva bhav, which Bhagavan has, if we also acquire, then we build that bond with that Bhagavan, that prema, experience that prema.
Sir, I had an observation.
Hmm.
So, about if I talk about even the Advaita masters. So, for example, say Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So, he was an Advaitin himself, but
Hmm.
we see that he was continuously immersed in that prema bhav
Yeah,
towards the Divine Mother, that he
yeah,
always revered her mother.
yes.
Sir, similarly, even Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also a Dandi Swami at the Shankaracharya Math at Puri, if I get it correctly. So I
Chaitanya
don't.
Mahaprabhu?
So he was also a Dandi Swami, right, at the
Yes.
Shankaracharya Math.
No, no, he was not at Shankaracharya Math. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was never connected to Shankaracharya ever.
No, no, the Puri Shankaracharya. So wasn't
No,
he a
no,
Dandi Swami over there?
no, 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 he was not.
Okay,
He
okay,
was not a Dandi Swami at Puri Shankaracharya. He took Diksha from a sannyasi by name Ishwara Puri.
okay.
And his Paramaguru is called Keshav Bharati. Not
Hmm.
Paramaguru, actually. His Paramaguru is Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri, then Ishwara Puri, then Sri Krishna Chaitanya. That is the parampara.
But
That's
all of these are Advaitins. I mean,
no, no, they
Bharati
are not
Puri.
Advaitins.
Dashanami Sampradaya. No, okay.
No, the Puri title is there because the sannyasi order, those who take sannyas, there are 10 Dashanami titles.
Hmm.
Just because
Correct.
they just because they have a sannyasi title doesn't mean they're Advaitis. Just like the Madhva.
Okay.
The Madhvas in Udupi, they are all Dvaitis. They are the diametric opposite of Advaitis, right? They
Yes, yes.
talk about the Abhedatva. We talk about it, the Chaitanya followers. Abhedatva we recognize, but they don't recognize the Abhedatva at all. They only talk about the Bheda,
Veda.
or
Mhm.
they consider that the most fundamental thing. Abheda they may recognize in a subtle way, but the Bheda is more important for them, the difference between them. And they also have one of the Dashanami titles, right? They take, for example, Tirtha. Tirtha is also one of a Dashanami title, no? So
Okay.
they take the title that the Advaiti sannyasis also may have used, like Tirtha, Saraswati, Bharati, etc. But just because they have that title doesn't mean they are Advaitis.
Okay.
It's just
Okay.
a sannyasi title, that's all. Sannyasa is an ashram, it's a well-defined ashram of the Varnashrama system.
Yes.
Now, in the Gaudiya Sampradaya of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after Mahaprabhu, we don't see sannyasis because the Varnashrama system is not followed in the Gaudiya Sampradaya in the same way that it is followed in the traditional Varnashrama. It is respected. The Varnashrama system is respected and recognized as a system of dharma. But in the path of Uttama Bhakti, even the designation of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi, those designations are considered as upadhis. And the goal is to become Sarvopadhi Vinirmuktam in Bhakti.
But
So,
similarly, in Advaita, everything is an upadhi except the Brahman. So I don't. So there
yeah,
are similarities, sir.
yeah, but Advaitis, they follow the Varnashrama system. They believe that their sadhana should happen through Varnashrama. Whereas in the Chaitanya Sampradaya, even the sadhana is not bound by Varnashrama. The identity of the person who is doing sadhana is only as a dasa of Krishna, not as a Brahmana, not as a Kshatriya, not as a Vaishya, not as a Shudra, but only as a das of Bhagavan. Guys, right?
Yes, sir.
What they mean by Upadhi is something else, not what I am referring to it here.
Okay.
ॐ स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः प्रलिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे धन्यवादाः पुनर्मिलामः. Thank you for joining today's class.